Hello, friends. In August of 2012, the UPS delivery man brought to me this pocket-sized edition of the Bible. I know, I got big pockets. I have, by the way, here a regular size of the Bible so that you can compare how big this baby is. But in all seriousness, I had just returned from Rome, and I had finished my biblical studies, and I was fascinated by the process of the transmission of the Bible and biblical manuscripts. Previously, I knew that a facsimile edition of the oldest Bible of the world was in the works, but the price was totally out of my budget, $1,000. The only issue is that nobody was buying it. Then I noticed that the price had dropped because not too many nerds there are out there like me that like to buy babies like this. And I noticed that the price went down to $200. Clicked. And thus started my Bible Museum, my private collection of biblical manuscripts. 4,000 years of biblical history in one room, my living room. And like they say, the rest is history. Welcome to the Padre podcast, a place where I share what is in my heart and mind, because I am a forever student and I plan to graduate in heaven, and I hope you do too. This is episode number 5, and I am going to talk today about the first item I purchased for my private collection of copies of biblical manuscripts, Codex Sinaiticus. The story of Codex Sinaiticus begins in the 4th century of the Christian era, when Emperor Constantine the Great commissioned the writing of the great uncials, or handwritten large copies of the Christian Bible. Christianity had just been legalized by him, and the great cathedrals and monasteries were being built with the respective libraries. By that time, there were plenty of copies of individual books of the Bible, but complete gatherings of the books of the Bible in large format were unknown. The 4 great uncials of the oldest complete copies of the Bible that survive to this day are Codex Vaticanus, Codex Alexandrinus, Codex Ephraemi Rescriptus, and Codex Sinaiticus, which is the main character of today's episode of Padre Podcast. So get ready for a treat. Codex Sinaiticus is believed to have been written around year 350 AD. A few centuries later, made its way to the monastery of St. Catherine in Sinai, Egypt. To this day, the Greek monastery of St. Catherine in Sinai is the oldest continuously inhabited Christian monastery of the world. Established in year 565 by the orders of Emperor Justinian, it is a male-only Greek Byzantine monastery. The monastery is famous for being built at the bottom of the traditional site of Mount Sinai, for the burning bush, for its chapel, for its ancient icons, especially Christ Pantocrator, and for its library. I actually visited this place in 2011, and I had the honor to enter their library and see with my own eyes some pages of Codex Sinaiticus. But pictures were not allowed inside. Bummer. Back then, I didn't know much about this manuscript, so I didn't really appreciate as much what I was looking at. Amidst the thousands of Greek manuscripts of its library, Codex Sinaiticus got forgotten among the old Bibles of the monastery. It was even thought to be destined for disposal and replaced by newer copies of the Bible. But in 1844, the history of this manuscript took a major turn when a German biblical scholar visited the monastery and discovered some leaves of this manuscript and was able to date them. His name was Constantin von Tischendorf. The monks had so many old copies of the Bible, but didn't seem to appreciate this one oldest copy of the Bible. Perhaps the monks were not aware of the importance of this manuscript, and they were more consumed in their daily lives and their heavy prayer routines. Tischendorf, on the contrary, knowing that he had discovered a treasure, returned to the monastery several years later for another visit. On February 4th, 1859, the steward of the convent invited Tischendorf to his cell and secretly showed Codex Sinaiticus covered in a red cloth. This time, not just few leaves, but a large volume of pages, pretty much from the book of First Chronicles all the way to the entire New Testament. We are talking about almost the entire Bible. This is the treasure that Tischendorf had seen 15 years before, and much more. Since the major sponsor of Tischendorf's expedition to Egypt was the Tsar of Russia, he was able to convince the superior of the monastery to take the manuscript to Russia for a public display. Thus, the manuscript began its journey outside of Sinai. Tischendorf took the manuscript to his native Germany first, to Leipzig, for further study and publication of the manuscript. Some pages of the manuscript remained in the University of Leipzig, but the majority went to Russia. From then forward, Codex Sinaiticus was at St. Petersburg until 1933, when the Russian government needed money as they were impacted by the global crisis. So they sold portions of the manuscript to the British. The British Library bought the manuscript for the equivalent of today's $500,000. The largest portion of pages of the manuscript, therefore, to this day, are under the care of the British Library. But even with this journey of the manuscript, there was still a major question up in the air. There were plenty of pages missing from the beginning of the Old Testament and from the end of the book, such as the appendices. In 1975, after a fire at the St. George Tower at St. Catherine Monastery in Sinai, some renovations were done. During the renovations, there were new discoveries at St. Catherine. Hundreds of manuscripts were discovered in the rubble, and among them, many pages of Codex Sinaiticus in very poor condition thought to be lost, mainly from the Pentateuch and from the back of the book that were part of the appendices of the 4th century manuscript were found. So, if you were wondering, yes, if you want to see the entire manuscript of Codex Sinaiticus, you have to go to 4 different locations: to the British Library, to the University of Leipzig in Germany, to Russia, and to Sinai in Egypt. And what is cool about Codex Sinaiticus is that the entire manuscript is in Greek, and it contains the entire Bible, including the books that you only find in Catholic Bibles. Whew! Cool stuff, huh? But wait, there is more. If you stay in the line, in July of 2009, I left Michigan for Rome to begin my biblical studies. I didn't know this then, but at the same time, in July of 2009, the entire manuscript of Codex Sinaiticus was being digitized by the British Library. This means that a team of experts traveled to the 4 locations to take digital pictures of every single page of the manuscript. Their goal was twofold: to create a website from which anyone from anywhere in the world could access the manuscript, So if for whatever reason, God willing, this never happens, the manuscript is destroyed by a fire or whatever disaster, a digital copy will be saved for posterity. The website, codexsinaiticus.org, is indeed a treasure for biblical scholars. But there was a second goal: to create a facsimile edition in color, large print, almost identical in size to the original, so that people could, for first time, have in their hands a complete copy of the manuscript in a single-bound edition as the original should be, something that cannot be done today, even if you want to, because of its pages being in 4 different locations. I happen to be one of those who have one of those copies. And I am happy to share my copy of Codex Sinaiticus with all of you. Pocket-size edition. Because I got big pockets. This is the first item of my biblical collection. The Bible Museum. 4,000 years of biblical history in one room. My living room. All right. That's all, folks. That's all I wanted to share about Codex Sinaiticus. You have a good day. God bless you. Bye-bye.